Welcome to our session on ERISA, and I might say this is by far the hardest part of retirement planning from a real-world standpoint. Here we don't spend a lot of time on it in the classroom because we've got so many other activities, but we're looking at what's difficult for the business owner. That is definitely going to be ERISA. It is really the Employee Retirement Income Security Act of 1974 that resulted from some very terrible situations in the corporate pension plans which were not being funded, and so the government stepped in and said, we're here to help you. Of course, when they're here to help you, that means there's going to be a lot of documentation, and that's what makes it so hard. The actual procedures you go through on a retirement plan are relatively simple. It's the paperwork that kills you, and we're going to go through it. And like many things in the government, although the Department of Labor is overall responsible, the checks and balances of the government means that you're not going to deal with the Department of Labor, you're going to deal with the IRS. That is true also. The IRS represents COBRA. They represent the Obamacare. They represent the Treasury for income tax. They are sort of the stuckies to do all the work, and those are the ones you'll be dealing with. We have reporting, be it pension or welfare, and again, the problem isn't pension welfare, it's how they're defined that makes it difficult. So let's take a look at the material. Some are exceptions, so that's the good news. If it's a government plan, that could be federal, state, or local. If it's a church plan, which is very broadly allowed for churches of worship, plans outside the United States, excess benefit plans, and some plans I might note that are retirement plans, but not included for the amount of administration. It's all relative. And finally, plans solely covering compliance with workman's comp, unemployment compensation, and disability. And you might say, why not those? Because they have their own documentation, which you're going to need to do. First of all, the reporting disclosures, and there's a very broad term called pension, as it covers any plan, fund, or program of an employee group that provides retirement income to employees or results in deferral income by employees for periods extending to termination or beyond. So deferred income also falls under the definition of a pension for the purposes of these laws. And what is a pension? Well, all qualified pensions and profit-sharing plans, including some non-qualified deferred compensation plans. As I mentioned earlier, the mere fact that you're non-qualified doesn't mean you get out of documentation. The rest of pension plans generally is any employee plan that involves deferral of compensation to retirement or a later date. Now that sounds a little repetitive. One was go back again, what is the reporting requirements? And then it's on pensions and welfare. This is the actual definitions. Regulatory exemptions. We have special regulations for supplemental benefits that provide extra benefits to retirees to counteract inflation. And employee facilitated IRAs such as SEPs, simple IRAs, 403 plans, etc., which are really annuities. Again, you still got the reporting, but you have less reporting. We have major types of reporting. Let's start out with the summary plan description. It must be provided to every participant in the plan within 120 days after establishment of the plan or 90 days after the participant enters the plan, for those who were not present when it was formed. It provides description of major general plan provisions. And that sometimes is the biggest problem. As a practitioner, I've run into situations where the company had different wording in their plan than they had in the retirement plan filed with the IRS, and that became a problem. We have a 5,500 report must be filed each year by the 7th month after the plan year ends. That sounds simple. 7 months to do it. It's always a crash to get it done. A lot of documentation, a lot of research is required. We also have the Individual summary must be provided to participants each year within 9 months after the end of the year, summarizing information from the annual report. Pretty straightforward, not a lot of complexity. I think the biggest problem here is that a lot of times the attorneys and the marketing people try to get involved to beef it up. And then finally, we have the individual benefit statement, which is provided 30 days after request. So if you're at work and you want to know where your status is on your plans, you're entitled to it within 30 days. Some more reporting. Again, lots of reporting when you have a retirement plan, even the so-called simple retirement plan. Title 4, reporting and disclosure requirements contain plan termination, issuance, insurance provisions. It's used to help the pension benefit guarantee corporation ensure and protect benefits, and therefore it's obviously designed for defined benefit plans, not contribution plans. We have welfare plans under ERISA. Any plan, fund, or program established or maintained by the employer, employee organization, or both, providing one or more of the following either through insurance or otherwise. First of all, you're giving medical, surgical, or hospital care, sickness, accident, or disability benefits. Now, these have not changed even with Obamacare. I'm sure eventually they will be changed, but right now you have a lot of probably duplication of submittal paperwork. Any plan, fund, or program established by or maintained by the employer, employee, organization, or both, providing any of the others, the following rather, apprenticeship programs or other training programs for the people, daycare centers, scholarship funds, prepaid legal services, certain other plans described in federal law. And again, those are minor ones. Because we have a time restriction here, I'm trying to keep it down to a reasonable amount of time. We're not going to go into those. Just realize it's a lot broader than it looks. And you're probably shocked in the fact that you have to have plans for training, plans for apprenticeship programs, plans for daycare. We also have exemptions from welfare plans, recreational dining facilities or first aid centers on employee premises, but don't get too happy because there's going to have to be reported on to other agencies. Hollywood gifts. Let's start over again. Holiday gifts are also going to be exempt. Again, if they're significant, they will require a 1099. Unfunded tuition reimbursement, voluntary group insurance offered by an insurer and not sponsored by an employee, or employer rather. If you have less than 10 employees, your modified requirements of Form 5500. But the key is how you define 100 employees, and it's as complicated as it's under Obamacare for 30 employees. Forms, most forms are available at www.irs.gov, and they're usually up to date. They do give you some advice on how to handle it. However, most people find the best way to hire someone who is an expert on the field. They can give you the right type of information that you need to do which is proper under the circumstances. Remember, the liability for not having the forms is yours, not the government. You have to be very aggressive in figuring out what is the latest set of rules you have to abide by.